Looking back now, I can see a lot of ways that I tended to freeze. Like the time in third grade when I had a solo in the school assembly, or the time a teacher informed the classroom that the new girl didn't start her multiplication test from the right place. Today, kids face challenges that can feel very overwhelming. They can feel social pressure, new teachers, homework demands, wanting to do well, and wanting to feel safe, right? Their unspoken feelings or needs. Having to deal with overwhelming behaviors in our kids can feel stressful for us. It adds time to anything we're trying to get done. And because our list of things to do can still need to get done. Hello, and welcome to Mom's Way to Wellness. If you are a mom who feels lonely, unseen, and overwhelmed with the demands of motherhood, you are in the right place. I am your host, Ida Maravillas. I help overwhelmed moms transform their challenges into mental health and generational well-being as we talk about the struggles of motherhood, parenting, and mental health through a lens of faith. I offer resources and guidance to help you work through the challenges that are impacting your relationship with yourself and with others. Let's get into today's episode. All right. In the last episode, we talked about how the beginning of the school year can feel stressful as we adjust to new rhythms and routines for both us and for our kids. With the busyness of fall, school activities, and sports schedules, I want to take the time to talk about some of the different ways we may be adjusting to new routines that we are trying to put together. How some things during this season can feel stressful for our kids, and how to help them cope with the stressors they may be facing. Transitions can be challenging, and as moms, we see firsthand how our kids deal with big emotions. So today I want to unpack what stress looks like in kids, how their nervous system reacts through fight, flight, or freeze, and some simple ways we can help our kids cope when they feel stressed. I remember feeling nervous in the fall when school started, and I wasn't sure what to expect at the beginning of each school year or at the beginning of each transition. And there were some things that I would wonder about. I would wonder what I could expect from the new school year, if I would have any of the same kids in my class as the year before, or if my teacher was going to be nice. I actually had to transfer school a few times, and whenever that happened, I felt even more nervous. I wondered if I would get lost on my way to school or back home, if I would make any friends, or if my new teacher would be nice. And let's face it, we spend a lot of time with our teachers in school, so that's something that's really important to us. If our teachers are nice and treat us respectfully, we feel safer in their classroom. We feel like we can speak to them. We feel like we can share and be who we are. And so showing up daily full of lots of emotions for me growing up, I came face to face with a generation of adults around me that were silent about emotions and big on respecting authority. And so it didn't help me feel at ease. With every stage, there were new routines, new things to adjust to, new things that I had to learn, new rules to follow. And there were lots of times when the adults around me just didn't get it because somehow my experiences as a kid didn't measure up to their stress as an adult. Looking back now, I can see a lot of ways that I tended to freeze. Like the time in third grade when I had a solo in the school assembly, or the time a teacher informed the classroom that the new girl didn't start her multiplication test from the right place. And that new girl was me. I am sure we can all look back at different memories from childhood and picture a time when we either fought, avoided, or froze. Today, kids face challenges that can feel very overwhelming. They can feel social pressure, new teachers, homework demands, wanting to do well, and wanting to feel safe. School has changed a lot through the years. Bullying has crossed over into the cyber world. Technology has become something most kids are given at younger ages for various reasons. Metal detectors may be the norm at some schools, and active shooter drills have become part of the mandated emergency planning for school districts. The stressors that affect our kids can be not knowing what to expect in a situation, feeling embarrassed about something, unexpected or uncomfortable situations, being called on to give an answer that they don't know, feeling tired, having a lot of homework, wanting to do well on a test, having a messy room, or even having to clean that messy room, wanting to make their parents proud, not understanding something they're expected to already know, having to complete chores, knowing how to prioritize what they need to get done, busy schedules that feel nonstop, access to worldwide news and trending social media stories that feel overwhelming, and conversations they listen to around them that are emotionally charged or polarizing. Some of these things were not part of the backdrop of our childhood experiences, so they may be hard to relate to. And while what stresses out our kids may look different from what stresses us out, their nervous system responds the same way ours does, through fight, flight, or freeze. We have to remember that the stress response is a natural reaction in the body when something feels overwhelming, demanding, or even scary. We have to remember that our kids can feel these emotions too. And when they do, adrenaline and cortisol, the stress hormones, are released into their bodies. And that's what prepares them to either confront, escape, or shut down in response to whatever situation they are feeling overwhelmed about. Kids don't always have the words to explain what they're feeling, so stress tends to show up through their behavior. And when I say kids, I know I'm talking about basically like school-aged kids, even though sometimes I do use the examples of toddlers and maybe before kindergarten. But I want to break down what fight, flight, and freeze can look like in our kids. I'm going to use the same visuals I did in the last episode. For fight, I'm going to ask you to picture a volcano. For flight, I'm going to ask you to picture a runner. And for freeze, I am going to ask you to picture an iceberg. And so let's look at the fight response. When kids go into fight mode, it's just like a volcano erupting. There's a lot of things that are building up underneath, and their emotions spill out as behaviors, right? So we see red, we see anger, we might deal with arguing or talking back, sounding annoyed in their tone of voice, rolling their eyes, especially if you have a preteen or a teen. I know that sometimes they don't realize that that's what they're doing. We might hear their tone of voice become loud and even yelling. They might throw things. They might hit or kick things. And in younger kids, we can see what we will call a tantrum, right? They're biting themselves. They're hurting themselves. They're pulling their own hair, self-harming, really, but not having the words to be able to express what it is that is going on underneath the surface. What can be happening inside is feeling anger or frustration they can't name, feeling unsafe or unheard, afraid or ashamed, embarrassed or confused. So lots of different emotions can be underneath the surface when we see anger. They might feel their heart racing, or their body might feel like it has too much energy. It might be very filled with restlessness and energy. And they might feel hot. They might feel like their cheeks have gotten hot. Their cheeks might even be red, and they might feel very flushed, and their hands might even be sweaty. And so this is what the fight response can look like in our kids. Now let's go into the flight response in kids. When kids go into the flight mode, they may want to escape or avoid a situation. We can picture a runner, right? A runner for the flight response because it's like running away from whatever it is that's stressful instead of facing it. So this can look like walking away, running out of the room. For older kids, it might be that they even walk out of the house, avoiding schoolwork or chores, procrastinating, putting things off instead of dealing with them, wanting to be absent from school. So asking if they can miss, asking if they can be picked up early, cutting classes that are hard or demanding. It could be hiding in their room at home, wanting to quit something before even trying, saying, I can't do this. And sometimes our kids can be scanning a space to look for exit points, just in case something bad were to happen, because there might be this overwhelming sense of dread and fear that something bad can happen, something that they don't even necessarily have a name to put to, like just a general feeling of that fear. And so what's happening inside can be worry, can be feeling restless, can be feeling very fidgety or on edge, and they can be experiencing a strong urge to try to get away. They can have thoughts that feel too big or overwhelming to deal with. So they're just trying to not to have to deal with them. They can zone out or have difficulty concentrating. And they can also feel like their cheeks are red, their palms are sweaty, or their heart is racing. Because that's what happens too when we are in our stress response. And so let's look at the freeze response in kids. The freeze response is like an iceberg, right? What we see on the surface is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot happening underneath. There's a lot hidden underneath the water when we see an iceberg. And so on the outside, we might see tears. We might just see silence, like just literally just standing there or just sitting there, staring off or zoning out, not answering when spoken to, not participating, appearing to be shut down. And for younger kids who have to be picked up, if they are just put themselves down on the floor, they might feel like jello, or they might just feel really heavy when you have to pick them up and move them, if like they're toddlers or, little people like 5 or 6 years old. And so what might be happening inside is that they feel heavy in their body. They might feel stuck or paralyzed. They might have a heavy sense of dread or sadness in their bodies, and they just don't know what to do next. And when kids are younger, or depending on where they are at, physically located, they might have to freeze, because they know if they argue or walk away, that they're probably going to get into a lot of trouble for being disrespectful to the adult in authority. And this could depend on setting. This could depend on environment. So like if they're in school and they're interacting with a teacher, and if they are at home, whether or not they're able to say, like, can I go to my room? Can I take a break? Or if they even just go to their room, right? So the freeze response, I think, happens when kids don't have the access to resources, or they know that the consequence is going to be bigger, right? That third grade assembly that I mentioned, I did not run off the stage. I did not argue with anyone. I froze. And when I was put on the spot in front of the classroom regarding my math test as the new girl, I froze. I felt a lot of embarrassment. I felt a lot of things. I wanted to say a lot of things, but I knew my place and I couldn't say those things. And so we have to think about that with our kids, that sometimes they've learned that they cannot express what they are feeling, or sometimes they don't know how to express what they're feeling. And so let's talk about coping tools for kids, right? Coping skills, strategies, how we can approach their behaviors, right? Their unspoken feelings or needs. Having to deal with overwhelming behaviors in our kids can feel stressful for us. It adds time to anything we're trying to get done. And because our list of things to do can still need to get done, taking the time to deal with behavior can feel frustrating. But the hopeful part is that kids can learn tools to help reset their nervous system when stress shows up, especially if we've been working on how to do it for ourselves. In the episode that talked about this for moms, we talked about breathing exercises, movement, and water as the go-to coping skills for those moments. And when it comes to our kids, those are the same key strategies to help them reset their nervous system. But if they're stressed out and we are there to respond to their stress at the moment, there are a couple of things that we need to do first. What I am suggesting are some strategies that can help us pause long enough to be present in the moment with our kids as we walk them through it. It's not about managing behaviors, but showing them how to reset. If we only focus on the external behaviors and we don't walk them through a process of being able to understand their own emotions, name them, and find ways to reset, it's like putting a Band-Aid on a cut without cleaning it first. It won't heal properly. The Band-Aid will keep falling off and the cut will need more attention later. When I worked in the high school setting, teens would get upset all the time for various reasons, right? They didn't do well on a test. They found out there were rumors being spread about them through social media. They were having a conflict with a friend, or they had a conflict at home before they walked into the building. They might have been even dealing with some sort of loss in their family, but still needed to attend school for whatever reason. And so they would walk into our office angry or visually upset. And it really became my practice to give them some space to be in their feelings for a little bit. I would be able to offer them a cold bottle of water. And a lot of times they would accept it. They would take it. It would help to cool them down. And I had to be very intentional about making sure I was calm. And that is the first thing that we need to do. We need to stay calm or get calm. If we're already noticing that our own stress response is activated, if we're feeling like our cheeks are flushed, our body temperature is rising, our heart is racing, and we see our kids get upset and we match that energy, then we can look at their behavior and feel overwhelmed by how they're acting and just try to address behavior, try to correct, try to manage, try to control, right? Try to stop the behavior, stop the emotion, and just fall in line. We can feel triggered because we're already feeling stressed about other things, and we didn't plan on the time that it's going to take to have to stop and deal and work through a meltdown. And so we can have our own idea of how we wanted our time to go. So when we are calm, we're able to respond to an overwhelming moment very differently than when we are also upset. So it goes back to taking the time to practice those breathing exercises, right? We can invite our kids to take some deep breaths with us. We can reassure them that things will be okay, that, we can ask them to come and take a walk with us. We can tell them it's okay, just calm down. And we could just approach them in such a more peaceful way when we are not emotionally charged by the situation. We can invite them to take some deep breaths with us. And once they have calmed down, we can figure out what to do next. Again, we can offer them a drink of water. We can even say, have a drink of water with me. Let's take a drink together. Here, let's drink at the same time. Remember that hydrating our bodies with water helps us to reset our nervous system. We can invite them to go for a walk with us. We can tell them it's okay to take a break from what feels overwhelming in that moment. We could help them to walk through their feelings, right? Stress needs an outlet, and movement can help address what may feel like a lot of energy inside of the body. We don't have to jump to problem solving. We have to be with them in their feelings, or let them be in their feelings for a little bit. And sometimes we have to guide them through what's going to help them to start to feel more calm. We have to remind ourselves that knowing how to cope with the things in life that feel overwhelming, demanding, or scary takes practice. It's something that our kids can learn, and it's something that we get the opportunity to teach them. We teach them when they watch us model how we handle our own stress, and we teach them when we help walk them through their stress. Once they've calmed down, I encourage you to practice the art of listening. This is an opportunity for them to share what they are going through. It's an opportunity to help them name their emotions, to hold their hand, to reassure them of your love, and even remind them of how God is with us when our emotions feel big. And because our kids are individually and uniquely made, this is also an opportunity to explore what works for your child. Help them identify the different things that help them to feel better. This starts to build up different coping skills to help them have their own resources that they can pull from when we're not around to help them. As parents, we can remember that when our kids yell, avoid, or shut down, it isn't about labeling them as being difficult or bad. It's their nervous system doing its job, trying to protect them from whatever feels overwhelming. And our role is to help them name what they're feeling and use coping strategies that work for their age and personality to help them to calm down. Remember, behavior is communication, and we can help our kids learn how to communicate their needs in a way that is helpful. The goal is never to eliminate stress, but to guide our kids in learning how to work through it, building resilience, confidence, and calm along the way. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Please subscribe and leave a review. This will help others find the show. If you would like to receive additional resources on motherhood and wellness, you can join my community by subscribing to my email list at idamaravillas.com. Remember, wellness is possible one step at a time.